IRC Media brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more.
Hey everybody, Mike here from Indian River Connections. Welcome to the Board Report by IRC Media. Tonight Joanne is out of town and John has got a hockey game, so you're stuck with me tonight. And our guest will be Jennifer Pippin, who is a regular on our show and now a candidate for Indian River County Board of County Commissioners. I don't know how you'd say it, but either way, you get the gist. You may know Jennifer, you may not. We've done a lot of interviews with Jen, and this one will probably be no different. So we'll talk about some current issues going on in the county, I'm sure, and jumping into politics the way she is. And some people would think she's crazy, and me included, and we'll get her opinion on all that. So I'm going to throw it to Warrior Shield Weekend, which is coming up in September. It's an awesome event. Warrior Shield Foundation, they do this. It's a 501(c) that helps wounded veterans and whatnot. And actually what they do is they raise money and they throw all their funding behind a different 501(c) that they vet, and they make sure only benefits first responders or veterans. And it's a great organization. Every year they have their gala and their Freedom Fest concert in Orlando with Natasha Owens, Ryan Weaver, Bo Bice from American Idol. It's a great time, and the concert's only like $60-$70. The gala is a little more. They have a silent auction, but they have some great speakers like Colonel Gadsden from Battleship and the survivors from Benghazi and stuff like that. So check out Warrior Shield Foundation. Even if you can't make it to Orlando in September, check out the website, maybe make a donation or jump in on that silent auction. But it's a great foundation. This year, they're supporting the Border Patrol Foundation. And that obviously would go to families affected by a loss of life or injuries from a Border Patrol agent or the like. I'm not sure. I don't have all the details on that. Last year, they supported Corporal Chad O Foundation for PTSD, which was a really an amazing event. And his mother, Corporal Chad O's mom, was there at the event and told his story, and it was pretty touching. So I look forward to going to this year, and we're hoping to do a stream with Dale and Jim and maybe Joanne and John up there in Orlando. So we look forward to that. But anyways, I'll throw it to their ad, and when we come back, we'll have Jennifer with us.
There's a kind of strength you can't buy or borrow. It's born in the fire, tempered by sacrifice, and carried by those who never stopped serving. Some heroes wear uniforms. Others wear scars. They're veterans, first responders, and Gold Star families. Men and women who gave everything and still keep giving. At the Warrior Shield Foundation, we stand beside them, shoulder to shoulder, providing the support, the care, and the community they deserve. We're a proud non-profit, a 501(c)(3), built to protect those who protect us. We don't just serve our own. We help other non-profits reach their missions too, because together, we make the Shield stronger. Donate and help our cause, help their cause, because every act of kindness builds hope where the battle still rages inside. Join the mission. Donate today. Visit warriorshield.org, because heroes deserve a foundation as strong as their sacrifice.
And we're back. Jen, welcome. I want to start off by saying, out of all the interviews I've done, and out of all the interviews you've done, I've seen you do, they were all great until we get together. There's always some kind of echo or a cow mooing in the background or something. But so you're a regular on the show when it comes to school board issues, and it's been valuable information for not just me, but my family and our listeners and other people who didn't know half of the stuff that was going on locally. But for people like you and members like Jackie Rosario and Dr. Jean Pasca and other community advocates, we wouldn't know that. So seeing in today's political climate how the mudslinging can get, I would be lying if I'd say I was not surprised when I saw you announce you were running for county commissioner. I was like, boy, she is really a warrior with a thick shield and going right for it. How has that been, going from the activist side to the political side, I guess?
So again, thank you so much for having me, Mike, on. I appreciate it. So it's been amazing. So the past, little over a month, it's been fun. I've always helped our candidates, as you know. I've helped run, up-teen school board races over the past couple of years. And I was always the helper. I was always the one out there getting the petition signed. Hey, there's a, meet and greet going on here. Hey, there's a forum going on here. So always helping our candidates, but never being the candidate. So it's kind of amazing to be on that side and actually sit in, the supervisor of elections, candidate trainings. And, I just dropped off a bunch of petitions this morning to, be checked and signed off. So it's been really fun, planning these meet and greets. And again, I always did it for everybody else. I never did it for myself. And as you know, I was planning on running for school board once Jackie Rosario termed out in 4 years. So I was like, oh, I got 4 years to plan, a campaign and kind of get my ducks in a row. And, life gave us, other plans. And, just jumped into it. And I've got, 2 meet and greets scheduled. I'm getting going on my petitions and donations. And it's been 99% amazing, Mike, and 1% unknown. So I'm still waiting for that unknown, to kind of catch me off guard with something I didn't know or should have known, but it hasn't, knock on wood, happened yet. So.
Yeah, I was trying to check my audio in the background, so I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. So how is that? I've watched these meetings over and over, and no matter my personal opinion on any of those members, it's not an easy task to operate a meeting in the sunshine. I would assume, the Roberts rules, there's a lot into it. It's just not it's not a mouthpiece, I would say. There's a decorum to it, right?
That's right. Absolutely. Well, and same thing with the school board. So, as you know, the school board governs the school district and they have to operate under sunshine laws and Robert's rules. Well, same thing with the county commission, but they're doing it on a higher scale, more budget, roads, stoplights, property taxes, all of these things, governing over the budgets. I mean, which is so huge, for our entire county, for the sheriff's budget and all the constitutionals. So, like I, put on my website, it's advocating and doing best by, residents and families in Indian River County, and just going from the education end to the county commission end, which is just, again, everything a little bit on a bigger scale as far as budget and things to look out for. But again, being so involved with, education and legislation and all of these things over, the past almost decade that I've been doing this, since COVID, on the school district. And I've learned so much and connected with so many people. What I'm doing now, Mike, is I am meeting with the county commissioners. I'm meeting with people who ran for county commission and seeing, what they would have done different or what they wanted to change. Meeting with the constitutional officers and saying, hey, what do you think's going good in the county? What do you think needs to change? And I'm learning so much every day. I'm trying to make that connection with the community, make that connection with the elected officials, going back and watching old meetings. And it's been a fun month because, again, I was planning on running for 4 years and having, the educational background of what I've already done. And now I'm jumping into something different. And it's just been so exciting.
Yeah. So I couldn't imagine the support and all that. And going into that, like, your values make you who you are. One can step back and call you political all you want, but those same values translated into like a local government, that's not political. That's not a hard line left or hard line right. I mean, what's good for the citizens is good for the citizens. So I think that in your faith, bringing that to the table, I think makes you a perfect candidate um, for a seat like that, especially county commission. Um, you had mentioned the budget. We just recently saw the sheriff come to terms with the county commission. Um, how do you feel? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
it's okay. Put me on the spot. Ask all the hard questions.
How do you feel about this settlement and the sheriff dropping his lawsuit? And how do you feel about the whole situation?
Sure. So if I was a county commissioner at that time, I would have tried to settle it prior. I would have said, listen, we need to have longer, harder conversations, do it in the sunshine, do it in the public. And it was hard because you had the media who was, drumming things up. You had county commissioners who, had a certain, way that they were thinking and then changed. And so I think that it was just a lot of miscommunication, and instead of kind of coming together, like they did in the end, thank goodness, maybe should have been done a little bit sooner, and maybe having, again, those harder conversations in the sunshine during a county commissioner meeting. And, you can never say, well, I wish the media didn't get involved, but not have the media get involved and, come to an agreement before lawsuits had to be filed. But I'm glad that they, did come to terms and both sides are happy, and we're going to have safety first, in our county, which is so important for everybody, right? So for our residents, for our families, for our retirees, everybody, everybody coming in, as tourists. Mike, over the past year, we've seen so much violence and, horrible things happen in our community. So safety always has to be the forefront. And if the sheriff and the Indian River County Sheriff's Office needs more money to do that, I would absolutely, back the blue and make sure that they have the funding for what they need.
Okay, so as county commissioner, going forward, let's say going forward from this step, what would you encourage more of or suggest to the sheriff and the other members as far as solving this issue for next year? Because it's not going to go away, and it might even get worse with possible property taxes going away, which you have information on that also.
Sure. Yeah. So absolutely. So I believe with the settlement, they agreed to increase the budget, for next year for the sheriff's department, which could have a problem if they do the property taxes. So right now it's not included in the special session at the end of this month. But if they did add another special session, as it sat last in the Senate, was the property taxes would still cover safety, so the sheriff's office, the fire department, and education. So everybody who is not homesteaded would still cover those things. So I'm not sure if that would change, that settlement would change if the property tax, was approved, in November. If it went on the special session and it was approved in November, that may change that settlement for next year. But moving forward, if that did happen, the county commission would have to have, hard conversations with all of the safety, law enforcement, fire, EMTs, all of those, and very important things for our community and the residents, to see how we would, start reducing the budget to be able to cover those things legally, but also what we would have to cut back as a community. So it would be very, very hard conversations if that passed. After it went through special session, if it was passed there and then passed by the voters again in November.
Yeah, and it's a great thought, the property taxes, but when you think about it, no doubt there's going to be a loss of revenue. So where would you see a county like ours um, reduce, well, make up or not make up for that revenue? What's going to suffer from that?
Sure, absolutely. So there has been, many forums on this. The county commissioner chair, Daryl Laura, spoke about it at the Taxpayer Association. Susan Adams, county commissioner, had spoke about it. Wesley Davis, our property appraiser.
Are they
Um,
for it or against it?
so they're just basically giving
Or
information
hesitant?
like, hey, if we do this, this is what's going to happen. Or if we don't do this, this is what's going to continue. So everything would be cut. So you would see, less bridge repairs, less road repairs, things that are supposed to get done with these tax dollars wouldn't be getting done as fast, right? So again, education wouldn't change, safety wouldn't change because all non-homesteaded properties would have to pay those taxes. Um, but if you're homesteaded, you would have to pay those as well. But you would see all the money that would normally go to everything else get cut down. So we would probably look at things like CSAC, where it's funding nonprofit organizations, would be cut out. The extra fluff everywhere would have to be looked at in the budget because we couldn't continue to fund what we've been funding over the past 10, 20, 30, 40 years when that budget is going to be cut that much from property taxes. So yes, it would be great for people who are homesteaded to have less property taxes. It won't completely eliminate it as it was written last in the Senate and passed in the House. But it could completely change again, Mike, if it goes to special session. They could add things or take things away, and then the voters would have to vote on it in November. So it may not even get, because it's an amendment, it would have to get 60% of the vote or more to be able to be passed. So it's so many what ifs right now. So it would be a lot of, hard conversations if it was passed after, the special session and the voters wanted it in November to see, what the county would have to cut and, how it would affect after, that amendment and law would be passed in November.
Do you want it to pass, and do you think it's going to pass?
So honestly, for me, I will say this on record again. I'm totally okay with answering hard questions. I think it should be done in spurts. So if I could wave a magic wand and go to Tallahassee and they would listen, I would say, hey, maybe we do retired veterans who own their homes first. Let's start that, and then maybe next year all senior citizens over a certain age or disabled. Like, let's do it in spurts and not just get rid of it, so much at once. And kind of force your elected officials to rock it back and look, maybe annually to reduce, and not just take it all away in one big lump. Because that's going to be hard when you go from a huge budget to a much smaller budget. And you also don't want the county to suffer, right, Mike? So, like, you don't want roads to not be fixed. You don't want bridges to not be fixed or that delay or even in safety. So if it does come back into the sheriff's budget, they wanted to approve, an increase for next year. If they can't do that because they're not receiving those funds, we don't want the ambulance to get to your house later, right? For your mother or your wife or your
Right.
children, right? My husband, like, we wouldn't want that for our neighbors. So a lot of things would have to be, discussed and, have that hard local conversation to see what could be cut or not. Because again, it could be life changing for somebody if they're having to wait longer for certain services and such.
Yeah, and that's particularly alarming considering last night I attended the Fellsmere City Council meeting, and uh, our friend Thomas Augustus put it right when he said Fellsmere is at the I forget his exact words. It's in the text, but Fellsmere is literally uh, the crown jewel right now for developers and for the county. It's the largest city by landmass. It's underneath a different jurisdiction than the county commission, but a lot of their decision making affects the rest of the county, especially when it comes to roads and bridges and emergency services, water, sewer. Although they have water, it's horrible, but they start increasing these big developments, they're not going to be able to sustain that either. The roads already can't sustain traffic, and not just Fellsmere, but other parts of town. But how alarming is that for you at the county level when you're looking at cities not helping the quality of life for citizens, because they're your citizens too.
That's right. No, and that's huge, And, you were talking about the roads. They've talked in the county commission meetings before about paving all dirt roads. And that's, a lot of Fellsmere. You get off in those, different roads. It's all numbers. It seems like in Fellsmere, it's all numbers, and you have just a couple, street names. But, and again, if you're putting these huge developments in there, there's only, two ways in and out of Fellsmere. You're coming from Brevard, or you're going, through off of, was it 512 coming in, right? So I mean, you have to, with growth, you would have to have, I always say, smart growth. You're going to need more law enforcement, right? You're going to need more Fellsmere PD out there. You possibly need a hospital out there, because there's only so many people that, again, getting these services, you're going to need possibly more, fire out there, firefighters out there. So you have to, as you grow, be able to, again, fix these roads, possibly pave these roads, have more safety out there. And if you're putting developments, I know they suggested, I think there was a development of like 300 homes. If you had two people, hypothetically, in each of those homes, that's another 600 people. So you just have to do it safely. You have to have the infrastructure. You have to have it done correctly to be able to grow. And, we saw after COVID, Mike, the amount of growth that we had in Indian River County, and then the people that are here, as for tourism during, season, and, more and more people are staying too, Mike. They're not able to handle the 2, 3, and 4 houses, like they used to. So a lot of people are staying here. So we have to have, smart growth. We have to have it controlled, and we have to make sure we're doing it right. And it's concerning for me with these property taxes, if they go, all in November, how that's going to affect the county. And again, having those hard conversations with residents and the rest of the, county commission to see what would be best for the community. And we would have to reach out and talk to, residents like you and residents across the county, from South Bureau to Fellsmere and Sebastian, and, see what everybody, would be willing to cut back on. But again, for me, it would be the non-governmental, entities, the NGOs, that would have to be cut first, in my opinion. Again, I would just be one vote on, the county commission. But, they would have to fund themselves, and we would have to take care of, our sheriffs and our, our roads and things like that before giving it to an NGO.
Yeah. So the Sunshine Law is no doubt a benefit for the everyday citizen, but does that also hinder sometimes the ability of county commissioners or city council members to work together? I don't know how that works. I know there's really strict rules when it comes to county commissioners or elected officials working outside of the meeting, but it's just like small towns with small populations have a lot at risk for the rest of the county, and sometimes they get great people elected into these positions, but sometimes they might need a little coaching, and not from their city manager or their city attorney or their city developer telling them how to do
their
it.
superintendent. Right. Exactly. No, I completely agree with you, Mike. So it's funny. So let's think about this. I actually had this conversation with the business owner in Vero Beach. So in the Senate and the House, they can all talk to each other. So for legislation, they can all talk to each other. They're not under sunshine laws. So if you and I were senators, for the great state of Florida, you and I can talk and say, hey, I'm going to approve this. I'm going to do this. I don't like this. We could discuss it all. And then when you get down to the local government, you can't do that. So if you and I are on county commission, we could talk about our kids. We could talk about how beautiful of a day it is, that we're going to the beach tomorrow, but we cannot talk business. So we couldn't talk about, hey, Mike, what are you thinking about on the agenda next, right? So we can't talk about that. Anything that would come for a vote. We couldn't be in the same room. So if they're having a forum and they're talking about something that could possibly come up for a vote, you and I couldn't be in the same room, right? So like me and a school board member and a city council member could be, because we're not on a board voting together, right? But you and I wouldn't be able to be in that room together, right? If we both sat on, county commission. So yeah, so the sunshine laws are very strict. You can't even send, emails to each other, things like that. And they do that so there's no like backdoor deals. So I understand both ends of it, that they don't want, secret meetings like they had with the Sebastian City Council, where they had a couple of council members, having closed door meetings. The public doesn't know what they're talking about. The other board members don't know what they're talking about. So I get both sides, but I completely agree with you. I wish that people had enough integrity and enough respect for each other that if they did have outside communications, outside of sunshine, if there wasn't sunshine laws, to be able to have these hard conversations and have good ideas. But on the flip side, you don't want those backdoor deals done, right? So you want everything in the sunshine. You want them done at the meetings. So like county commission meetings are biweekly, unlike the school board where they're once a month and they have a superintendent workshop. So every 2 weeks, the county commissioners are getting together and they're discussing things in the sunshine. They open it up for public comment, so you can comment on agenda items that are on the agenda, and at the end of the meeting, non-agenda items. So, sunshine, it's good. I completely understand what you're saying. Like, and when I look at it, like, okay, senators and House reps, they can all talk to each other across 67 counties, right? And have meetings and lunch. And then you get to local government and, your city, councils can't get together and do that. Your county commissioners can't get together and do that. But I think if people led with more integrity and they were honest and weren't, didn't have ill will. Like, again, I've referenced to back what happened in, Sebastian City Council several years ago. They could have
because there was no doubt
lunch meetings, right?
Who you supported back then. It was bad stuff going on. So
right, exactly.
Yeah, I definitely see the benefit in having everything out in the light. But I can also see it. I mean, it's hard. Some elected officials are afraid to even talk outside of the meeting because they don't want. They're scared of lawsuits, and that leads to my next issue with some of these elected positions. Like, we want to hold our elected officials accountable. We want to push back at them at every decision they make, or how we want to criticize them on every aspect of their life and every decision they make. But like I'm looking it up last night, these city council members out here, they're lucky if they make $5,000 a year, and they're going through a lot of shit. Pardon my French. Just to get through a few workshops and a couple meetings a month. And to me, and same with the school board, it's significantly more than that, but it's still a part-time job for full-time headache.
That's right.
I'm all for paying for more. I'm all for paying more for quality, and then you have that high expectation. Maybe we're at that point now, but as far as I knew, there was actually legislation last year to lower school board salaries across the state, but which I think is a bad move, because then you end up with the rich people who have very little vested interest in the actual community happenings, like we see on school boards and stuff like that. But because they don't need the money anyway, so it doesn't matter if they weren't getting paid at all. They're there for their own interests, I would say.
Right, exactly.
Allegedly.
Their personal things.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing about being a public servant and an elected official. So you're doing it mostly for your community, right? So you're doing it to be the voice of the community. So if I, get elected in November, I have to listen to all my constituents. So it's not just District 2, like I'm representing District 2 because they have representatives all over the county, but I represent everybody. So I would be listening to you in Fellsmere. I would be listening to John and Vera. I would be listening to the entire community. And you do best by the majority of the community. You're always going to have somebody who doesn't agree with a vote or doesn't agree with what happened, but you have to do it for the majority and the betterment of the community. And like you said, with city council, they don't get paid a lot. School board members, they don't get paid, like they do with most of them for their normal jobs or what their normal profession was, right? But you do it as a public servant to make your community better. And, I think that we miss that with a lot of our elected officials. I think that, like you said, a lot of people are in it for their own interests. They do it for their own, political gain, or, they want to move up the ladder and they're not doing what's best for the community. Now, not all. I mean, we're very blessed in Indian River County to have, I think, the majority of people that are, looking out for the residents, but we do absolutely have some that are just looking out for them and their small group of people.
I would agree. I think at the county level, and I would say the majority of the city levels, we're pretty fortunate. I mean, there is a few in every bunch, I guess, that we could do without, but that's what elections are for. So,
That's right.
including what we were talking about, is more government the issue. So, another issue that was brought up last night, a proposal at this city council meeting, where this it was new to me, and I know it's new to everybody, but it's not really. They're called CDDs, community development districts, and they sound very nice, and it's like an HOA, except they have an elected board just like a city council, just like an HOA, except it's under the sunshine law, and uh, it's essentially a taxing district, just like mosquito district, hospital district, the inlet district, and they can levy assessments, and they can issue bonds, and it sounds good. And I saw the presentation, and the meeting was standing room only for a different reason. But as soon as they started comparing themselves to an HOA, the crowd outside that could hear it got very audible. Like pitchforks and torches. Like nobody is for another taxing district, even if it's not in their neighborhood. It just sets a precedent. And we've done a really quick research, and there's some of these across Florida. Barefoot Bay is the closest one that I know of. They had a recreation district. They might call it something different now, but it's essentially what it is: a board of trustees that are elected on terms, and they can levy a millage and whatever they want. And it was brought up for some of these smaller developments, and that's what it kind of concerns me, because some of these developments you're talking about 320 units, 400 units, or 260 units, but either way, let's say you times that by 4 residents per unit on average. That's not a whole lot of people. And if you're putting people in a position of authority amongst that small group who can levy taxes and stuff like that on the apartment complex,
Their neighbors, right?
right? And these are going to, just like my problem with low wage elected positions, you're going to end up with people who don't need the money, and they're just going to, they could be tyrannical with their vote. I don't know. To me, it's kind of scary, but in a way, I see where it can help with infrastructure and whatnot. It does look like it's a tool for the developer to pawn off all of that onto the residents afterwards, though.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? And I know, coming from a position of like a city manager, it's kind of like, oh, I don't have to worry about that section, except the PD would still, and whatnot. But to me, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. So for me, I'm about less government. So honestly, that would be another thing that people would have to vote on and look at. And, like you said, you get one person that, maybe doesn't know what they're doing, but they have all the time in the world, that maybe, doesn't manage it well. Tradition does the same thing. I did a brief investigation on this, when I heard it was brought up. So, and for me personally, like I personally, HOAs, I've heard from many residents, they don't like HOAs, but I've also heard a lot of people love HOAs. They love, having the gates, and, their house has to be painted a certain color. They have to have it fresh. So you have both ends of people, who like the HOAs or don't like the HOAs. So I think it would be the same way with this thing, but I'm with you. I worry about, putting more people in government, more votes, more things like that, more responsibility on one or two individuals that don't have, the experience as a county commissioner or a city official or something, that would understand how these things work, because they can control, what happens on those roadways there. If they have bridges, things around ponds, things like that. So, it could become a safety issue as well. And if you have someone who's not familiar with that, it could be, it could be a safety issue, which would concern me.
Yeah, I just think at this time in our economy, we don't need anybody else with taxing authority affecting our citizens. Even if it's not my neighborhood, it's still affecting our community.
Yeah,
And
I don't
some of
think
these,
our community's big enough for it, anyways. I mean, I really don't.
well, especially I don't think this was in reference to the proposed project of Legacy Landing, but even if you're talking uh, other developments, larger developments, it just seems like it's not going to help the situation in the county. Anyways, seeing how we're going to take a loss in revenue, anyways, we might have to raise a millage down the road to maintain law enforcement and first responders and stuff like that. It's a slippery slope,
Right.
and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just another tax.
yeah, as of right now, it is not under the special session. So they all absolutely could call another one, but then it would be up to the voters in November. So there's so many what ifs. Remember, I told you 99% of my campaign's been amazing. That 1%'s the unknown. People always ask about property taxes, and it seems like it comes up all the time. And, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, yes, we have to have a plan, make a plan to make a plan. But, it hasn't even gone to the session yet. It hasn't even been voted on. So it's something to definitely keep on the back burner and, consider. But for me personally, until it is in that special session and it's something that, it is going to come to the voters, if it gets voted on in November, then I would do a bigger deep dive. And this would be probably one of those things that, would it be included or not? For our county, like I would ask the taxpayers, I would ask residents and see if this is something that they would even consider.
Yeah, it's and we know growth is going to happen, and we want growth, but we want it healthy and controlled, and we want it to match the infrastructure that's already in place, not the other way around. And that seems to be how, unfortunately, that seems to be how the last city council in Fellsmere operated. And now you have developments like this, and under some of their projects, they don't have to take care of turning lanes and stuff like that until their project is finished. So it's already adding, hindering on the small town feel we have. But other than that, do you think that county wise, with the rezoning questions, do you see a benefit to the county in moving away from our agricultural um, presence? I don't know how else to describe. I'm lost for words, but we're typically an agricultural county, and with a lot of the orange groves dissipating and stuff like that, would you be more inclined to promote farming to rejuvenate the land, or slowly sell it off? Well, I mean, obviously the county can't sell it off, but slowly change zoning to permit for development.
Right. So personally, for me, I think that we need to keep our ag. We need to keep our, our preserves, because then we're going to have nothing. We're just going to be another big county. Like, we're going to look like Fort Lauderdale and Daytona and Palm Beach. So, this stuff was zoned the way that it was zoned, to make sure that we have that ag and, the preserves for, for our, for the lagoon. I mean, all of this stuff would affect the lagoon as well. So for me, again, a lot of things may change if this property tax thing happens, or, in time, for our county. But that is something, like you said, with the growth, we have to be careful with what we do and just not allow everything, because then we'll just have, buildings and skyscrapers, and it won't be Euro anymore. It won't be Indian River County anymore. Could you imagine doing that to Fellsmere? Most of these homes are on 5-acre plots, and we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose our Indian River.
I'm telling you, this development last night literally had 5 feet between houses, 20 feet in the back, 20 feet in the backyard, 15 feet in the front yard. It was literally 85% coverage where it was allowed. It's not going to go through. I don't think it's going to go through. I will call them out. There's 2 council members from Fellsmere that I was particularly impressed with. Well, one I was particularly impressed with, one that pretty much I expected him to abstain or vote no for some of these things. But Shayla Shayla, I can't pronounce her last name, and I won't do her any justice, but she seemed to be the only one asking questions of these presenters and developers, and I think people like that are very important to be on these boards. I work in a corporate setting, and there's always that one person that asks too many questions and makes the meetings go too long. But at this kind of thing, when you got a room full of people, they want information, and why not get it right now and then when you got the guy right in front of you? So I was pretty impressed with Shayla, Councilmember Shayla for Fellsmere last night. So I look forward to more of that, and we're pretty much at 45, 50 minutes. I don't want to keep you any later, but I do want to ask you, who is schooling who? I know your daughter is studying constitutional law, or wants to, right?
So she is going to be getting her AA in just a couple of weeks, and she is doing a internship at a lawyer's office right now. She's going to do her bachelor's here, and then she's going to go into constitutional law at University of Florida.
But no doubt, she's already got a mind for it. So
couple more years. So that's her goal. So so my son's graduating a year early from high school, May 15th, and my daughter is graduating with her AA on May 8th. So it's like a super exciting time. So so I'm going to have one that's going to be a lineman, and I have one that's going to be a lawyer. So two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. So I'm calling them my LL, my lawyer, my lineman. So they're on track to be doing that here shortly. So.
Well, hopefully mom can retire when she's done with politics and the babies can take care of mom.
Yeah, well, hopefully mom gets on the county commission, and mom can help make the county the most, keep it going, the most amazing county, no matter what comes at with us, with legislation or, anything like that. And, be able to watch her babies grow up to be that lineman and the lawyer,
It is a wonderful county, and I just wish certain characters would stop embarrassing us.
I know.
There's been misfortunes. So
I was married here, Mike. My kids were born here. We all work here. We all love Indian River County. This is our home. I'm born and raised in Florida. So this is my home. Like, I'm not doing this for any other reason than I want Indian River County to be the most amazing county for me, you, and every other resident in this county. I don't have, my morals and values. I don't have any underlying thing that I'm trying to get passed or done, or, try to, work my way up the totem pole. I just, I feel like I'm at the point in my life where I am ready to serve, on a board, and not just as, a nonprofit leader, I was on multiple nonprofit boards, leader, and, be able to continue, the same work. Look what we did with the school district, Mike. We went from 37th in the state to 5th. That was because of parents, grandparents, and community members like us, right? And leading that charge. I want to take that same, amazing capability to the county commission, and they're doing a wonderful job. And I just see so many other things that I would like to do and like to bring, and again, listening to residents and their great ideas and bringing that to fruition as well. And I hope that, I am given the opportunity to be able to do that, and to be able to, serve the community at a different, I don't want to, what's the word I want to say, at a different position,
different capacity. And that's what I tried to hit at earlier. Like, even your stance at the school board, at the podium, at school board meetings, none of that would be a negative or net negative at the county level. And it's not like at the county level you'd be advocating for the same things. Right. It's doing county business, and definitely our county could use some better business doing, as we've been shown in the past. So you mentioned it, Dr. Moore. How much longer do we have Dr. Moore? I've heard a nasty little rumor that he's building a great big beautiful house in Jacksonville. And no doubt about it, he's brought some progress and some good stuff to our district. And if the rumors are true, like I said, they're just rumors, more power to him. Definitely a step up if he's applying or interviewing for the same position in a bigger district.
Right. Oh, I'd have to look into that. I didn't hear that scuttlebutt, so that's news to me. The last I heard, when he said his wife is happy here, he's happy here. He wants to be the number one district in the 67 counties here in Florida. So we'll see if that happens. And Dr. Moore's come a long way. So him and we had a really, really, really rough and rocky relationship during COVID. And, parents were completely shut out. They weren't listened to. One of the school board members, Brian Barefoot, said that we were not intelligent. We didn't know what we were talking about. So it went from that, Mike, to now we have a seat at the table, right? So we're sitting on curriculum committees and, code of conduct and, at the state level. And, we've been advocating for, better education and parental rights in Florida, in our county. So I think that we have a mutual understanding now that, hey, these parents that have their children in our schools, they're not all bad, they're not all wrong, and we need to listen to them. And parental rights should be at the forefront of every conversation when anything's happening in the schools. And it's taken a little over 6 years to get there. But I finally think that we are working together now. And I think that when I do go to the podium and say something, or I do make a phone call or an email, it's not getting ignored like it was in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, personal politics shouldn't be brought into positions like parental rights. They just don't even belong in the same category. So before we wrap up, Jen, anything else you want to plug? Family First Indian River, do you guys have anything going on, and what's coming up?
Yeah, thank you so much. So Family First Indian River County, we're still doing our monthly meetings. So our monthly meeting is next Thursday. If anybody would like to join, you can. We're on Facebook. We have a phone number and email address and everything on our Facebook page. You can just RSVP on there, and we will give you the address of where we're meeting. So we're having candidates come, because now we're in campaign, election season, and getting petitions signed and meeting the candidates for all of the positions, and getting ready for the next school board meeting. So the next school board meeting will be next Monday, not a couple days Monday, or the Monday after our meeting. And just looking at the agenda, seeing what's on there, just making sure that we're paying attention through the end of the year. Everybody's all excited it's the end of the school year, but there's a lot of stuff still going on, right? Mm-hmm. And then also, if anybody wants to check out my website for my campaign, it's www.votejenniferpippin.com. So it's PPIN, not Scottie Pippen, PIPPEN. So it's PIPPIN.com. And I have my meet and greets on there. You can sign a petition. It has my cell phone number and my email address. So if you have questions, or, anybody wants to, have coffee or lunch and have a hard conversation, totally all about it. I'm putting myself out there, putting my personal cell phone number on there. But yeah, a lot of things, great things going on, end of the school year, we got proms coming up and graduations, and then we'll be getting ready for, the next, school is going to start right back up before we know it again, Mike. It's going to be the next school year before we blink, and the election's coming up, so it's going to be a very, very, very busy couple of months with Family First and my campaign and just life going on. So I have 2 kids graduating, so it's going to be very busy, and I feel like we're going to blink and it's going to be August 18th, and we'll be at the polls and saying, oh my goodness, school's about to start again, or school already started, and it's going to be a very, very busy time, but it'll be amazing.
Bless your heart and your stamina and your endurance. I don't think I could handle it. And I'm glad we have people like you out there. And once again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being a part of the show. And everybody, if you're watching at home and you end up watching this week, make sure you visit Jen's website, visit Family First Indian River, and visit ircmedia.net. We have a couple other shows we produce. We do have a lot of new followers due to some drama in some neighborhood pages, and it's great. So we love it. And anybody's welcome. It's not always political. And so reach out. If you have questions for Jen, you may know her politics, but what she's doing is about balancing a budget, about spending your money correctly, and just governing people's tax dollars responsibly. And I don't think that should, even though it's
following the law. I mean,
even though there's R's and D's besides everybody's names at that level, it shouldn't be a political thing. So Jen, again, I appreciate you guys. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button and visit the websites.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Let me find the right button here.